Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jai Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Varadari Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Varadari Jai Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bhanachari Muna Chari Yamuna Tira Bhanachari Muna Tira Bhanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Lalita Vishaka Jaya Shri Radhe Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Ananta Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramansa Pariprajakacharya Astitara Satashi Shimad Shilabai Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramansa Pariprajakacharya Astitara Satashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shamkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dhama Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Book Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai. Prashadam Distribution Ki Jai. Shri ISKCON Krishna Balaram Vrindavan Yatra Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you all so much for inviting me to speak. And I just wanted to say that I'm just so grateful to all the devotees who've maintained this, not only maintained, but increased this wonderful temple over so many decades. Panchagoda Prabhu was saying he's been here 33 years. And then, of course, Daivi Shakti, who's been here for eternity, and Dharmatma Prabhu and Mukunda Datta, and I understand now there are 3 head pujaris, and Govinda Dasi, who's been so kind to me every morning. And deep gratitude to all the devotees who are so dedicated to maintaining this project and increasing it so beautifully. Every time we come, we can't even find our way around because there's so many new buildings and new projects and 45 departments. Is that right? Can you believe it? There are 45 departments here. So thank you all so much. So grateful. So today is the disappearance day of Devananda Pandit. So let's first chant Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, and then I'll speak a bit about him and then go to the verse. Maybe I don't need kartals. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Ghora Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Ghora Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Ghora Bhakta Vrinda, Chandra Jaya Ghora Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Ghora Bhakta Vrinda. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Dadati Sapadantikam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakapataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So yes, before speaking on today's verse, I'd like to speak a bit about Devananda Pandit, who's also one of the great personalities of the Caitanya Caritāmṛta. And in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, we see many great devotees. In the 8th chapter of the Adi Lila of Caitanya Caritāmṛta, it's described all of the branches and sub-branches and major branches of the Chaitanya tree. So many great devotees are described in this wonderful book, which is Prabhupada called the nectarian of life. And once Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if all other books were lost, there would be no loss to the world if there was still Sri Caitanya Caritāmṛta. But I wanted to say that, having said that, in the Caitanya Caritāmṛta, there are examples of great devotees who appear in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and whose behaviors are very exemplary. And there are also examples of personalities whose behaviors are not so exemplary. And often there's a beautiful description of how such people received the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, his chastisement and his correction. So in a sense, we can learn from everyone. Everyone is our guru, right? Think about it. Everyone is a guru of either what to do or what not to do. So therefore, we can learn from every living being. Thank you so much for teaching me what not to do and what not to become. So I think that's an important lesson. So in the second verse of Lord Chaitanya's Sikshastakam prayers, we hear how the Lord has given his extraordinary mercy in his holy name. But due to my offenses, I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction to these unlimited holy names of the Lord. And the greatest offense to the holy name is to blaspheme a devotee of the Lord, the Hati Mata offense, the mad elephant offense. So, the elephant comes into your bhakti garden of your heart, and he can just tear up, this mad elephant offense can just tear up everything you've so carefully cultivated in your bhakti creeper, your bhakti lata bij. So why is this offense considered to be the most heinous, the most detrimental offense? Because the holy name is received by the mercy of the devotees, the sadhus. And if such a sadhu is blasphemed, then the holy name does not like to tolerate that kind of blasphemy. So in this pastime of Devananda Pandit, we hear how he committed such an offense to a great devotee, Srivas Thakur, and was later rectified by the mercy of another great devotee, Vakreshwar Pandit, and blessed by a beloved, cherished chastisement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So what's the backstory? Devananda Pandit was a scholar, and he was an ascetic, and he had been indifferent to the pleasures of the world from an early age. And although he had a great reputation for his brilliant scholarship and erudition, he nevertheless had no real feeling of devotion to Krishna. And so he failed to understand that bhakti was the ultimate purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, even though Srimad Bhagavatam is the only book he studied, which is amazing. So he was a mumukshu, or one who seeks impersonal liberation, moksha. And he praised dry austerities and renunciation in his discourses on the Bhagavatam, and he did not glorify devotional service. So one day, Srivas Thakur, Srivas Pandit, came to hear a Bhagavatam recital that was going on in Devananda Pandit's house. And as he listened to the text of the Bhagavatam, Srivas Pandit became so absorbed in a mood of loving devotion, and he started to cry. And Devananda Pandit's faithless disciples, so this is a word to all you gurus out there, make sure your disciples are trained properly. So his faithless disciples threw Srivas Thakur out in the street. They threw him out of the assembly for causing a disturbance. Just imagine, one of the Panchatattva, right? So since Devananda Pandit did not object to this action of his students, he was responsible for their offense to a great devotee. And Mahaprabhu became very angry with him. So the Lord said, and this is a quote from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord Chaitanya said, whoever recites the Bhagavatam without glorifying devotional service is an ignorant fool who knows nothing. This rascal is a really bad word in India, in case you're from other countries. It's a really bad word in India. This rascal recites the Bhagavatam and never mentions bhakti. I will go, it's Lord Chaitanya speaking, I will go and tear up his manuscript. Just watch me. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, comments on this verse in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. He says, when those bereft of devotion forget their actual identity, they become completely indifferent to the service of the Lord. And when they identify this indifference as the ultimate goal of life, they become a source of profound irritation to the Lord, even though he is by nature supremely merciful. Wow. So the devotees find great satisfaction in seeing the Lord become angry in this kind of way. So the plot thickens, right? So what happened next? So sometime after Devananda Pandit committed this offense to Srivas Pandit, Mahaprabhu was passing nearby his house and saw that he was engaged in giving a discourse on the Bhagavatam. And Mahaprabhu became angry and rebuked him severely for his lack of faith in the Vaishnavas. And just as blasphemy of the devotees is the best way to be deprived of the Lord's mercy and destined for downfall, glorifying them and engaging in their service is the best way to find the mercy of the Lord and become freed from all sinful activities. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Devananda Pandit, and this is again from Chaitanya Bhagavat, listen, Brahman, if you want to be cured after consuming poison, you must ingest ambrosia through the very same mouth from which you took the poison. In this way, not only will the poison be digested, but your body will become immortal through the ambrosia's divine power. You get what Lord Chaitanya is telling him? Anybody have a hint of what Lord Chaitanya is saying here? Anybody want to shout out anything? What is Lord Chaitanya saying? You drank poison, now you better drink some nectar. What's he saying? You better get some glorified devotees. Better get some blessings of some devotees if you don't want to be doomed forever, right? Okay. So then what happened is, through great good fortune, Mahaprabhu's dear associate, Vakreshwar Pandit, the great dancer, he's called the great dancer, Chaitanya Caritāmṛta, he came to stay at Devananda Pandit's house. And because Devananda took excellent care of Vakreshwar Pandit, Mahaprabhu's heart kind of softened to Devananda Pandit. Previously, Devananda had been completely without any faith in the Lord, but when he heard of Mahaprabhu's glories from this great devotee, from Vakreshwar Pandit, his attitude changed. Through the association of the Lord's devotee, he began to develop a taste for pure devotional service. And again, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in his comments on these verses, for Devananda Pandit of Kulia Gram, one of the holy places of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, one of the 9 islands of Navadvip, The fruit of service to the Vaishnavas was faith in Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Vakreshwar Pandit's visit to his house, to Devananda Pandit's house, was the source of this auspiciousness. So although Devananda Pandit was a smarta, he was a great scholar, and he was self-controlled, and he studied nothing but Srimad Bhagavatam. He believed in God and had control of his senses. All he lacked was faith in Mahaprabhu. But by the grace of Vakreshwar Pandit, this faulty intelligence was wiped away, and he became a believer in Lord Gaurachandra. So he was a scholar of the Bhagavatam, but it was through the mercy of Vakreshwar Pandit that he was able to understand its meaning through Mahaprabhu. That's from the Caitanya Caritāmṛta. So Mahaprabhu told Devananda Pandit to explain the Bhagavatam in terms of devotional service. It was Devananda Pandit's great fortune that he was able to receive the mercy of the Lord in the form of a chastisement. So don't fear chastisements from a superior, because it's a blessing in disguise, right? Devananda Pandit was a great pious soul, for Mahaprabhu verbally punished him, a great blessing. The chastisement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the greatest pious act. And the Chaitanya Bhagavat explains that even if one should die, okay, did you hear that? Even if someone should die as a result of the Lord's punishment, he still goes to Vaikuntha. Chaitanya Bhagavat, so beautiful. So Devananda Pandit received this mercy due to living in Kulia, or Koladweep, one of the 9 islands of Navadweep. Navadweep means 9 islands. And this in particular is a place where offenses are forgiven. Gopal Champu was also forgiven for his offenses in Kulia, Koladweep. So a little bit about Devananda Pandit. Haribol. So today's verse, Caitanya Caritāmṛta Adi Lila, chapter 4, text 204. Should you do it responsively? Yes? Okay. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Sva Sukharta Salokyadi Na Kare Grahane. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Sva Sukharta Salokadi Na Kare Grahane. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Sva Sukharta Salokyadi Na Kare Grahane. Please chant. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Sva Sukharta Salokyadi Na Kare Grahane. Sva Sukharta Salokyadi Na Kare Grahane. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine. Any Vaishnavis like to chant? Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema. Ar and Shuddha Bhakta, the pure devotee, Krishna Prema, out of love for Lord Krishna, Seva, service, Vine, without, Sva Sukha Artha, for the purpose of one's own pleasure, Salokya Adi, the 5 types of liberation, beginning from Salokya, residing on the same planet as the Lord, Nakare, do not do, Grahane, acceptance. Translation. Furthermore, pure devotees never forsake the loving service of Lord Krishna to aspire for their own personal pleasure through the 5 kinds of liberation. Please repeat. Furthermore, pure devotees never forsake the loving service of the Lord, Lord Krishna, to aspire for their own personal pleasure through the 5 kinds of liberation. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. A pure devotee of Krishna who loves him exclusively will flatly refuse to accept any sort of liberation, beginning from merging with the body of the Lord and extending to the other varieties of liberation, such as equality of form, opulence or abode, and the opulence of living near the Lord. So this verse is about liberation. This purport is a verse and purport are about liberation. And so liberation is kind of another word for freedom. So I wanted to speak a bit about freedom and bondage. What is freedom? What is real freedom? And what is real bondage? What is liberation or freedom? And what is bondage? So many people would consider to be a servant to be a type of a bondage. But here we are in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and there's a great mystery here, a great curiosity, and a great adventure here. So what is that great mystery, or you could say counterintuitive mystery, that pure devotees experience here? By giving up the desire to become the master of yoga, or master of a nation, or a family, or a political party, or a master of some field of expertise, but rather by trying to enter into a mood of loving service, aspiring to become the servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna, the master of the gopis, as Lord Caitanya identified himself, Gopi Parter Padakamalayo Dasa Dasa Nidasa. So by changing that mentality or that aspiration, one can enter into a mystery of one's natural intrinsic identity as a tiny, infinitesimal, eternal spirit spark of knowledge and joy. What's the use of knowledge if there's no joy, right? We're just hearing about Devananda Pandit. He had lots of knowledge. Apparently he was lacking joy. So, and by this becoming a servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna, one can realize one's natural state of freedom, where Lord Sri Krishna, the actual Lord of all beings, the source of all the worlds and universes, you could say multiverses, not just universes, right? Amazingly, such a personality will agree to become a servant of such a humble, selfless devotee. The actual master of the worlds agrees to become a prisoner in the heart of such a devotee. Wow. Think of the cowherd boys in Vrindavan. I actually have a picture of them on this bag. You can You see them? They're on an adventure. Yes. So they're loving Krishna so wholeheartedly, and they're just marching fearlessly into the mouth of the Aghasur demon. And they're singing the whole while. Krishna will save us, Krishna will save us, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And what can this demon do in the face of our Krishna? Right? So they have no fear, totally 1,000% trusting Krishna. And Krishna's just standing there. I love the picture in the early Krishna book where Krishna's just, I think he's got his finger on his cheek like this, like he's trying to understand the power of his own Yogamaya potency. He can't understand the power of his own potency. He's just standing there watching all this. But what could he do? He just has to follow his dear devotees into the mouth of the demon to save them as their only protector, because they had no other protection. So beautiful. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, 8th verse, there's one of Prabhupada's great purports, part of the purport, one of his great, I would say, Mahavakyas. Srila Prabhupada gives a stunning description of our need for this extraordinary freedom, the real need of the spirit soul. Here's what he says. He says the need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. It's beautiful, huh? Beautiful. And then there's something very similar in the Stota Ratna of Yamunacharya, where he opens his heart and expresses this same kind of a mood of a loving, realized pure devotee. So he says, I'll say the English first. He's praying to Krishna. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a loving master, such a fitting master? Bhavantamevanu charan nirantaram prashanta nishesha manoratantaraha kadaham aikantika nitya kinkaraha praharshi syami sanata jivatam. So this verse that we're reading today from this verse and purport of Caitanya Caritāmṛta speaks about liberation or freedom from material bondage. But so my question that I'm posing to myself here and to all of you is, what is actual freedom? And what is actual bondage? Right? Is a dog wandering around in the street without any home, without any master, really free? Or an orphan with no parents wandering around like a beggar in the street, are they free? Or is a dog being kept and fed by a loving master more free? Is a child more satisfied having a caring mother or father? In the same way, the living beings are satisfied in relationship, in loving service to the Lord. I have to say something here. I saw this amazing little child this morning. I was telling my husband, he was about maybe 1.5 feet tall. Maybe he was 1 year old or 1.5 years. And he was clapping in the kirtan like anything. And then he bowed down with his little bottom up in the air, imitating the devotees. He was bowing down, and then he was clapping, and then he was dancing, and it was so beautiful. Like, this is a child at such a young age. He's found his master. I told his parents, this is so beautiful, you know. What are the parents? How lovingly are those parents teaching this child, you know? So Yeah, so I want to conclude with a very beautiful verse from the Caitanya Caritāmṛta, where the devotee prays for this mood of loving service and ecstatic love as the only salary he desires. Without love of Godhead, my life is useless. Therefore, I pray that you accept me as your servant and give me a salary of ecstatic love of God. Sometimes in the temples, there's controversy about whether devotees should receive a salary, right? It becomes a big problem in ISKCON. So, but this is the salary, right? This is the salary we want, right? Prema dhana vina vyarta daridra jivan dasakari vetana mori deha premadana. And then just concluding with this, one of the final instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur before he left this world, he said, Krishna will be merciful to us, and we shall be blessed with the gift of devotion to his divine feet the very day we are delivered from the evil desire of seeking advantages and honors from others. Such beautiful, humble, pure devotion. So thank you all so much, and maybe there's some reflections or questions.
There's been many translations of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe Caitanya Caritāmṛta. Scholars and educated persons throughout the world, they had a chance to hear this, but it seems like nobody really, it doesn't stick with anyone in their head. So what makes it so different that now that we're reading Srila Prabhupada's books, that actually it makes sense about not wanting any liberation or any favors from the Lord with spontaneous service, because no one wants to do anything for nothing, so how do you envision that?
Yeah, so, as I was saying before, that contact with the sadhu. So here's Devananda Pandit, he's been drinking poison, right? But he begins to drink nectar by the mercy of Vakreshwar Pandit. So, I don't know about all of you, but I remember when I was first reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I just had this big realization like, wow, this is what Jesus was talking about. It just, all the pieces just fall into place by the, it's like being touched by divine electricity, So yeah, there's so many. Prabhupada himself said, that one American lady was asking Prabhupada to recommend to her some translation of Bhagavad Gita that she could study, and Prabhupada says in his introduction that he couldn't really recommend one. So he wrote one himself from the commentaries of Baladev Vidyabhusan. But, people with a sincere heart can find those threads. I wouldn't say it's, we're here for the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies retreat, and we're learning from these great scholars who really should be sitting up here instead of me. And I'm just loving their broad perspectives. And, it's not linear. This is not linear. And even if someone's reading, actually I know one devotee, he's a disciple of one of Prabhupada's disciples. He's an academic, kind of an academic, and he teaches Bhagavad Gita. And in the classes he gives, he brings Prabhupada's Gita, and then he brings a whole bunch of other ones. And he has his students, what do you think of this? What do you get from this? What do you get from this? And he was telling me that invariably his students find Prabhupada's Gita to be so lucid and so understandable, because as Lord Caitanya was telling Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, your commentaries are like, the texts are self-luminous, but your commentaries are like clouds that just cover the light of the verses. So it's a great blessing to meet a pure devotee of the Lord. And we've all had that fortune. We're all coming in the line of Srila Prabhupada. And so so many great acharyas, even in other disciplic successions, who are followers of Lord Chaitanya, who write brilliantly in purport to the Lord Chaitanya's Sikshastakam. So, yeah, we should have, make Krishna's vision our vision. Try to have that broad vision of the Lord, and not be, not create boundaries, but try to make our vision very broad. Actually, I wanted to share this other story. I forgot. I know everyone likes to hear stories of Prabhupada, and I was trying to think of a story of Prabhupada that kind of goes along with this verse and purport. So when I was living in the Boston Temple, this was 1969, we had a group of women who were learning to paint for Prabhupada's books. So we had a little painting school there. I was not very good at it. But we had a group of women and one brahmachari, and his name was Devananda Das. And he was struggling in his Krishna consciousness. And back in those early days, when someone was having difficulty, the remedy, the medicine was he should go travel with Prabhupada. Just imagine, wouldn't you like to go travel with Prabhupada? So, but that was the remedy, We'll send him to go travel with Prabhupada and see if Prabhupada's association can fix him up. And so Prabhupada was asking permission of the temple president, who was Satsvarupa Maharaj at the time. He was asking Satsvarupa Maharaj if he could get permission to take this brahmachari, Devananda Das, with him traveling. And this is such a cute story. It's very short, but it's cute. So Satsvarupa Maharaj, he wasn't Maharaj yet, but being a typical ISKCON temple president, he just immediately was reacting to Prabhupada's question, and he said, well, if you can give me somebody else. So Prabhupada's humor was so classic, So Prabhupada goes, oh, conditional. I thought that was so charming.
Is that how we are?
Oh, conditional. And, any other questions or reflections?
No. Well, you had the microphone in your hand, right?
Okay. What you say is all true and wonderful. Nice lecture. You pointed out...
Can you hold the mic up like this?
You spoke about liberation. And it's interesting that in the biblical tradition, in the beginning, there's a fall from grace. And the whole, them being in paradise, whatever that means, fell when the question arose, if you eat from this tree, you become as good as God. That's why they ate from this tree, and the rest, Adam became Adharma, practically speaking. And the rest is history. Even their children killed, one person killed another one. The whole thing, their idea of freedom was perverted. First material freedom. And it leads us all, we're eating from the forbidden tree every day, even when we go on the internet and listen to artificial intelligence. It's all, basically speaking, from the forbidden tree. We have to hear knowledge from Shastra, basically speaking. But saying that, it's interesting that Prahlad Maharaj, he gave an important verse. I don't want to repeat it in Sanskrit, etc. And he says, my dear Lord, you're the expert in giving benedictions. If there's one benediction I would like to have from you, is please free me from material desires. And that's kind of, Govinda Maharaj said, that's the essence of an advice, basically speaking. The most important verse, make me free from material desire, because then we desire otherwise so many things, even on the spiritual platform. But there's a slight material desire that we cannot go. Right. So who is going to root out our material desires? Who's doing that? Is that the question? Who's going to root out our material desires? The answer is already given by Prahlad Maharaj. Full-heartedly we should pray to Lord Krishna, please free me from my material desires. Right. And then from there everything starts. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So I think that got recorded. Please free me from material desires, and then I can really make progress. I always personally had this question. Again, I don't know about all of you, but I always sort of had this question, who is it that's really cleaning the heart? You know? Is it my job, or is it Krishna's job, or is it like a co-conspiracy? Is it a partnership? But yeah, you know, we can pray to Krishna to clean the dirt from our hearts, but we have to cooperate also. We can't be like the elephant bath, right? Throwing more dirt in every minute, you know, come before these beautiful deities and pray all our prayers, and then go out and, you know, criticize or trash or put someone down or be arrogant. So, yeah, it's a co-partnership, but I think, in my opinion, we have a lot of knowledge in the Krishna consciousness movement, and sometimes for many of us that knowledge remains in the headspace, and it doesn't sink down into the heart space. So, you know, we might be thinking, yeah, I want to go back to Krishna Loka, and I want to see Krishna's pastimes, and I want to dance with the gopis and play with the cowherd boys. But really, what we want first and foremost is we want love. You know, become free from material desires, but we want that love. We want that love. Because without that love, that prema dana vina vyarta, you know, without that salary of ecstatic love, we won't get it. We can be like Devananda Pandit and read Srimad Bhagavatam for our whole lives and not get it, you know? So, yeah, we have to be really, really careful that whatever we learn, and then that's a prayer to Krishna, whatever we learn has to sink down to the heart space and melt that stone heart. That's a prayer when we come to Vraj. Please let me enter Vraj with a melted heart. Otherwise, what am I doing here? I just see the dogs and the hogs and the monkeys, you know? What am I doing here? If I don't try to enter in the mood of a Krura with a melted heart, you know? So what's wrong with me? Krishna, help. So that's a sincere prayer of the heart. What else? Any thoughts? Yes.
Thank you, Mother Rukmini. That was a very, very sweet class. And just a thought, just a prayer that I was reminded of as you were speaking of the desire of the devotees to simply serve the other great Vaishnavas, not even the Lord, just the great Vaishnavas. And this is a prayer from the Mukundamala Stotra, King Akul Shekhar Alvar. He says, "Oh, my dear Lord, it's my very humble request, my anugraha, my very, very humble prayer to you. Tvada britte paricharaka britte abrittasya britte iti mam smarlokanatha." He's saying, make me a servant of your servant of your servant. 7 times, like 7, layers down. Just, that's my simple prayer, so I can serve them and be purified. So it was you so sweetly reminded us of all these wonderful prayers, and that's hopefully the mood we humbly try to cultivate.
Thank you so much. Very beautiful. So we have such a chocolate box of delicious different chocolates that we can taste, right? You can pull out the verse from Mukundamala Stotra or so many other wonderful verses, and we can have our own verses that we can compose. So the point is we have to somehow or other enter Vrindavan with a melted heart. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. What else? Somebody's thinking something. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So you said, I never heard that, the statement you made that we should, to desire to become a master is in some field of expertise, is a kind of maya, actually.
Yeah, so you can desire to become a master in some field of expertise, but do it as an offering to Krishna, Let me serve your world, Krishna, and all of your beloved living beings, right? By the expertise I gain in this field of whatever I want to study. Yeah, thank you for that correction, because that's more correct.
No, Mataji, no correction. But
No, but that's true. A devotee should be expert. That's one of the qualities of a devotee, right? 26 qualities of a devotee, one is expert. So whatever we desire to become expert in, I always feel like whatever gifts you have, whatever gifts I have, those are given by God. And if we don't use them for God, then they just will pull us down. So you're absolutely right. So whatever gifts you have, develop your expertise, but do it as a humble offering to Krishna.
Yes, but the difficulty is that, okay, we say, okay, I will learn this expertise to please Krishna and the devotees, but because the heart is not free from anatta, so in the process of learning and you become expert, and still difficulties may come.
Yeah, that's the real test, isn't it? Yeah. Because you could become a big doctor, the head of a hospital, or you could become the world's expert in ChatGPT or whatever. But if I become proud, if you become proud, then it becomes like a noose around my neck, just pulling me down to die. So, become expert. I think Prabhupada wanted that. I think Krishna wants that. Did you ever hear of these stories where sometimes, a devotee's working in a certain office or a certain field, and the other people in the office are, just noticing there's something about this person, right? He or she, they're just not like everybody else. And sometimes such a person, such a non-devotee will come and say, what's your secret? What is it about you? You don't get bothered by the things that everybody else is getting all bent out of shape about. What is it? So to become that kind of a doctor or that kind of an engineer. Murari Gupta, right? Another personality from Caitanya Caritāmṛta. He was a doctor, but he was also curing the spiritual disease in the heart of his patients. So that's the way, I think that's the way a devotee has to walk the world. That's the way we're meant to walk the world, be more kind, more compassionate, more expert. Srila Prabhupada was so funny, even more funny. Prabhupada was so funny, So just be expert, but do it with all humility. Can I share one more story of Prabhupada? I think we have a few minutes. So I was here in 1974, and we were making these gopi dolls that were supposed to go on the altar. They were the same size as Lalita and Vishaka, and they were supposed to go on the altar at the opening of the temple. But the temple didn't open till the following year. But anyway, so at this time in the summer of 1974, Srila Prabhupada, maybe you've all heard the story, Srila Prabhupada was deathly ill. And, he would say that because his disciples weren't following the principles, he would become very ill. So he came and he saw the temple was supposed to be open. There was, he had invited dignitaries from all over the world. It was a great embarrassment to him. He had invited the chief minister of UP and all these dignitaries, devotees from all over the world. And everyone, it was kind of like the emperor's new clothes. Any child could see this temple is not going to open. Any child could see it was a construction site. And he was so angry. And everyone was avoiding him. No one, you think, I wish I could just be in Prabhupada's room. I wish I could go in. Everyone was avoiding him. No one wanted to go near him because he was like Nrsingadev. And, when only Prahlad could calm down Lord Nrsingadev. None of the Devatas, even Lakshmi, no one, right? So he was in that kind of mood. So I have to keep this short, but so he was deathly ill, and then the chief minister came, and when a chief minister comes, he doesn't come by himself, he brings his whole entourage, the security detail and this and that, a whole motorcade, and Prabhupada got up out of his sick bed, and it was like a great yogi, right? And he came into the temple room, he was sitting under the tree, just like he like a yogi could project his illness onto his blanket and let the blanket be shaking. That's what he did. And so he came and he chatted with this chief minister of UP and spoke with him, was very gracious to him. And then after this man and his whole entourage left, Prabhupada just collapsed back in his bed. He was so ill. So then after a while, he started to feel a little bit better. And instead of taking his walk, because he couldn't really walk so much, he said, today we will take our walk sitting down. And they would drive him to a place out in the forest and just with a car, and then just sit down somewhere and just be out in the fresh air. Because in the summer, his house with the black marble was very, very hot. And so what happened was, during one of those first days when he was out on his walk, which was not a walk, it was a sit, we put those completed gopi dolls in his room, and they were all dressed in nice outfits and jewelry and everything. And Prabhupada came back after being in this fierce mood. He was like a lion, really like Nrsimhadev, you know. So after being in this fierce mood, he comes back and he sees these gopi dolls, and he starts walking around his house like a little boy. It was amazing, the change in his mood. He's walking around going, did you see the dolls? Did you see the dolls? He's asking everyone to come and see the dolls. Did you see the dolls? And his sister was there, Pishiman. I was telling Radha Damodar, is he here? I was telling Radha Damodar yesterday. She was like a big, gigantic white marshmallow. She's like a big, Prabhupada would call her the fat one. Anyway, she was crying, and she was going, Gopika Ballabha Radhika Ramana. I've never found that verse. If any of you scholars know that verse, I'd love to write it down. She kept saying that verse, and Prabhupada's walking around, did you see, did you see? And so all the Shrutikirti and the other secretaries all came into the darshan room where you see Prabhupada sitting in his desk now. And Prabhupada's standing there, and we're all gathered around, and it was so amazing. And the most amazing thing was Prabhupada just took his hand like this, like swept across this little ragtag band of excuses for disciples. He goes like this, you are like them. You are all like them, gopis. It was amazing. Prabhupada really tipped his hand and showed his Uttamadhikari vision at that moment. So beautiful. So it's about 9 o'clock. I think there's 2 minutes. Is any one question? Or yes, you have thought, reflection, question?
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. Is it on? Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mataji. Mataji, with the pastime of Devananda Pandit, Mahaprabhu actually forgives him, right? Eventually. But then, in regards to that, sometimes, we beg devotees, if, when intentionally or unintentionally we might have committed offense, and then we pray for forgiveness, we beg for forgiveness. And then the devotees may be so stubborn that they don't want to forgive you. So what should be done at that time? Like, how should we...
You can do it. Narottam Das Thakur did. You know how he was secretly serving his Guru Maharaj? His Guru Maharaj didn't want to be his Guru Maharaj, right? He didn't want any disciples. And Narottam was just secretly, cleaning up the place where he followed his nature call in the forest. And he was doing that he was a prince, right? And he was doing that every day until finally Lokanath Goswami said, you win, So do some secret service, Maybe you can, pray about that. See what you can do if someone doesn't want to forgive you for some perceived offense you can see what you can do to serve them and melt their heart. Because devotees have soft hearts. So see what you can do. You can do something secretly. It doesn't have to be a show. It doesn't have to be public. There was one devotee here in Vrindavan who was Prabhupada would go on his walk. 1 minute, okay. Prabhupada would go on his walk, and when Prabhupada would come back from his walk, this devotee would be in a very verbose way, not in a sincere way like you were chanting the verse, but making a big show, like chanting some verse, And Prabhupada, at one point, like, do some practical service, And so then, because he had this, pride in his heart, so then he got a broom. The next time he was sweeping, but he wanted Prabhupada to see that he was sweeping. you know. But compare that to Prabhupada sweeping the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple in the middle of the night. Hey, Rupe Samata, I cannot execute your mission without your grace. You know, hey, Gurudev. So, you know, anonymous service, you know, so beautiful. So see what you can do to melt the heart.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so
Srila-
much.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Radha Shyamasundar Krishna Balaram, Lalita Vishaka, Kornitai ki jai.